Let's see.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Let's see if we got this thing. So the ash almost got you stuck in London.
Yeah, we in fact we came by train just to make sure, because we still couldn't get a confirmation on our plane. We booked the plane weeks ago,
Yeah.
but we still couldn't get a confirmation that they were going to fly yesterday, so we got a train.
Okay. Let's see, we got this. People need to see your head, but also your amazing bodies.
Well, you've got to, I mean...
Okay. So it's all about you at this moment. It's, my voice, we edited between.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
I know.
just, we got your voice on,
Yeah,
on the thing. That's the... Okay, sitting here with Tony Parsons. My first question, what is Tony Parsons like?
What is Tony Parsons like? Well, in a sense, like he always was, really. Quite enthusiastic and passionate about this subject. What can I say? There's no difference in that sense. The personality and the character is there. The sound of the voice and hasn't really changed from before all of this happened. So I would say pretty alive, cheerful, rude, irreverent, with a tremendous passion about freedom, which has always been there. It's like a tremendous thing about freedom and freedom for people, in a sense. Although that, and yeah, that's it.
And any difference between Tony Parsons in childhood and Tony Parsons now? Or?
I don't know. I think there is something that develops sort of from childhood. There's always been a sense of a childlikeness there, and then of course we all grow up. I grew up in the world and had to manage my life in the world, or so I thought I was managing. That's another subject. And then all of this came along, and I wrote The Open Secret, or The Open Secret was written, and then suddenly about 2 years after that, the whole thing exploded into just doing talking. Before that I was a businessman, and I love business. I like business.
What kind of business?
I was a builder in England. I ran a building business in England.
Okay.
And then Claire and I ran a publishing business, and then The Open Secret started to snowball talking, so we had to give all of that up because we were too busy with this.
Yeah.
But I love talking to people. I quite like writing a bit, but nowhere near as much as going and talking to people about.
Why is that? Is that
it's more
the
alive.
energy?
Yeah, it's more something to do with being very alive, and the interconnection with people is the thing I most love. Also the laughter and the fun.
Yeah.
And also going deeply with people into this subject, which I'm totally passionate about, but in a particular way. I think some people think I'm a bit, I don't know quite how to put it. They think the way I communicate this is very singular and different to the way most people do. I have a particular passion about the nature of what people call non-dualism. As far as I'm concerned, most of the non-dualism that is supposed to be communicated is not non-dual.
No, what's it
It's
about?
still, for me, most communications that are supposed to be non-dual or actually are still offering something to a person. As far as I'm concerned, that is not what non-duality is about.
So you don't give people anything, except a good after. You don't give people anything.
There's nothing available at all for the person, because the whole essence of the message is that it doesn't recognise that there is such a thing as a separate person. So it doesn't communicate to a separate person or offer them any help or anything at all. It simply is, it's a twofold message, I would think. One is that it illuminates or exposes the whole structure and apparent dilemma of seeking, in such a way as to show that the whole construct of the person, or the apparently separate person, is illusory or dreamlike and has no foundation. but except it's the thing that drives people on to seek. So it illuminates the futility of seeking. It doesn't make it wrong. It's not trying to make anything wrong. It doesn't say that, I mean, seeking and separation are just as much an expression of wholeness as anything else.
Yeah.
But the message illuminates the dilemma for the seeker. And then the other thing, as far as I'm concerned, that's most powerful is not spoken, is something that's energetic. Because as far as I'm concerned, separation is something that's embodied. Mm-hmm. When we become separate, we feel it in every part of us. And it disturbs and influences the whole of our experience and makes our experience of life very unsatisfactory. Is this okay? I'm me going on like this?
Yeah, of course. Go on. No, I'm just curious if it's... Yeah, it's recorded. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and it influences the whole sense of being someone. All the time you're separate, you don't see a tree, you don't see a person, you don't see life as it really is. You see it through a film of separation. So energetically, there's a feeling of being held, contracted in the body. So for me, the other most powerful part of being together, being open about this, is energetic, and in some way or other that contracted energy can lift into the boundlessness, which for me is so-called liberation.
But isn't this the same thing that happens with a great sports event? People come there to lose themselves. A great concert, a dance party.
Yeah, it can happen.
Yeah.
It can happen in
It's a good party,
anything extreme or deep or joyful. Mm-hmm. It can happen making love. It can happen jumping out of an airplane, with or without a parachute.
Yeah.
It's like those extreme situations can create a situation where there's no sense of anyone. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And it can also happen walking down the road, of course.
Yeah.
Buying shoes. Oh, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It has to be like that. There can't be any condition. Liberation doesn't happen through any circumstance at all.
Yeah, but you only think afterwards or before that event made you feel that way, or not?
No, I don't think it does. And for me, there are no circumstances that bring this about. It just comes out of nowhere, because it is out of nowhere. Yeah. It's the one thing that we can't know, and it's the one thing that can't be induced by anything.
And can't be talked about.
No, it can't.
Yeah.
Well, you can talk around it. You can talk about what it isn't.
Yeah.
But you can't describe beingness, because it's indescribable. Yeah. Absolutely indescribable.
So Tony, no one is the same. If you look around, yet everything is one.
Yeah. Absolutely, that's the wonderful paradox.
Yeah.
The joy is that everybody's totally different, or everything is totally different.
You never find one person.
No. It's utterly unique, totally unique. Everyone and everything is a totally unique creation, and yet it is the absolute expression of wholeness. Nothing is apart.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah,
it's miraculous.
So there is no such thing as my life.
No, except that we have to be clear about this. For the separate person, they feel very strongly that their separation and their longing and their frustration is very real for them. I'm not saying that for a moment. It's absolutely real. I know it because I was like that. So you can't go around saying to people, well, all there is wholeness, so separation is absolutely fine, because that's bollocks. It's just nonsense to say that. Yeah. Because for the separate person, there's a real feeling of being imprisoned.
Yeah. But it's also this, so
totally.
We don't have to reject that.
No, nobody's
people
rejecting
thinking they have a reputation and a career.
No. Not reject it, but see it for what it really is, illuminate it.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
And then you still play your part, because people always say, but when I go live like that, I don't get out of bed, I don't wash my hair, brush my teeth.
Nonsense. But some people say, well, what you're saying, Tony, is that there's nothing that can be done, so I'll do nothing.
Yeah.
But doing nothing is doing nothing. It's just bullshit. You can't escape. You can't escape.
No. So, Tony, people who think they carry a lot of pain inside, old pain. Any advice for?
No, I don't. I absolutely don't give any advice at all, because that would be a complete reversal of the nature of this message. The nature of this message is absolutely singular and radical and completely uncompromising. So it doesn't attempt to help the person in any way at all, because there's no recognition that there is a person, a separate person. So pain happens, you know, suffering happens, longing happens, all those things just are what happens. And all that can happen here is to illuminate the dilemma of trying to make that change, because the dilemma is that there's no such thing as free will and choice. There is only what happens. So directly you start to give somebody a choice or suggest that in some way or other they can become liberated, or liberation will happen to them if they really listen to this message, then you're back in the wheel of A and B, subject, object. Yeah. So,
okay, no problem. Let's see if we're still rolling on camera. Yeah. So Tony, Eckharcie Tolle, Power of Now, very popular spiritual teacher. You once called him a monster, or the things or is that just
somebody
just
might
gossip?
have said I did. It's gossip.
Yeah.
Of course he's not a monster. There's no such person as Eckharcie Tolle.
No.
There's no such person as Tony Parsons. Oh no. But there's no connection between what he communicates and what's communicated out of the opposite. There simply is no connection, because again he is a teacher of becoming. He's what I call a teacher of becoming. He's teaching people that they have free will and choice, and they can move from A to B. So there's no connection between what he says and what's being. As far as I'm concerned, that is not non-dual. Yeah, it's absolutely is.
But you still emphasis on the now, and this.
But there is no now.
There is no now.
No. He emphasises that in some way or other you can go beyond thinking and be in something called presence. As far as I'm concerned, that's a teaching about how to move from one thing to another. So he is going on teaching people and influencing them and telling them that they can find something for themselves. There isn't anything for anyone to find, because nothing has ever been lost.
That's a great statement. But it still gives people a lot of... me too, before I saw your DVDs, Jeff Foster, it gives you a sense of peace. So it's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing right or wrong with anything at all. Everything is the absolute expression. Eckhart Tolle's communications are the absolute expression of wholeness. But also there's nothing wrong with exposing the futility of those teachings.
Yeah, of course.
But you know, yes, there are all sorts of people out there, therapists and teachers and so on, who make the principle of the prison more comfortable.
The prison more comfortable.
Absolutely. And there's nothing. What's wrong with that? Absolutely nothing. There's nothing wrong with it. It's far more intelligent than religious instruction. It's far more up to date and intelligent. But it has no connection with what I call absolute non-duality. The two don't meet. One is comforting her and helping people. And the other one is pointing to something beyond that.
So you say even calling this only the now is...
There isn't a now.
There is a now.
The now makes it another... I must now live in the now. It's like the girl looking in the mirror and saying, oh, tomorrow morning I'm going to start living in the now again. It's just... It's like living in the moment. How can anyone live in the moment? It's like, how can anybody, see their own absence? How can anybody know what this is? Because what is being talked about is totally unknowable.
And can't be grasped.
It can't be grasped, it can't be known. Nobody can ever know it. So, the idea of seeking for it is futile.
But isn't that what people always want? Trying to grasp anything? Trying to catch little parts of life?
But you know what's interesting is that when people come to these meetings and hear something that's completely radically different and completely uncompromising, doesn't recognise the person or the separate person, something energetically happens. When people begin to hear about the whole illusion of the structure of the me and the seeker, it starts to fall apart. And people come here and with something and walk out and leave something behind. It's happening. Because something else absolutely recognises this absolutely radical and very simple message.
Yeah.
They recognise it. Something resonates, not with the person, but something else resonates. That's beyond the whole idea that there's anything defined.
Isn't everything a recognition in?
No, not
separate
necessarily.
world, no?
In the separate world, there's a lot of in the world of the individual. There's a lot of influence that keeps the individual reinforced and supported in their individuality. If you think about the media and all of that, it goes on and on, encouraging the idea of individuality and celebrity. So the world we live in definitely reinforces a sense of being separate.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that either.
No, because it's there.
It's wholeness,
Yeah.
playing the game of being separate.
But talk about recognition, the things that really touch you, like pain you see in other people, or a beautiful piece of art. That's recognition of
It's
of
an emotional.
oneness.
It's in no.
No?
It's an emotional. Invariably, it's an emotional recognition. It's to do with the emotion of the person about the emotion of another person, or a work of art, or an attempt to celebrate life. There's nothing wrong with that either. But oneness is not to do with an emotion. It's beyond emotion.
You can't recognize it in
It's totally
anything.
unrecognised. Nobody can ever describe it. We have people who are becoming liberated all over the place, and they keep on saying to me, Tony, I've listened to you, and you've tried to describe oneness, and you can't describe it to me, and I now can't tell you what's happened here. I can't describe it. Nobody ever can. One of the most interesting things about wholeness is that it remains hidden from the seeker by being everything already.
Yeah.
That's how it remains hidden. It's everywhere. Everybody is in it, in a sense, but of course they feel they aren't, and they feel that they're in a story of me, which is a story about finding oneness, and that's the dilemma. It'll never be found.
For the seeker.
No.
No.
The seeker will never find. The most effective way to avoid oneness is to seek it.
Yeah. But you could see it like a hobby. Spirituality, you could see it like a hobby.
Yeah.
Buying CDs, reading
That's
books.
true.
It's nice.
For some
time
people
to
it's
pass
nice
your
hobby,
time.
but for other people it's
Yeah?
there's such a longing, such a pain, such a
No,
frustration.
I can't get it.
Absolutely, it's much more than a hobby for a lot of people.
Yeah, I got stacks of books and CDs, and then I look at them and I think, it was a nice way to spend my time.
Yes.
Yeah, some people play the slot machines, and I read all kinds of books and DVDs. Yeah.
Oh, in
Why
that
not?
way it's quite pleasant, but for
Yeah.
a lot of people it's much more desperate than that.
They grasp onto it.
Absolutely.
And, yeah.
They long for it. Why not? I mean, if you feel you've been cast out of wholeness, all you long for is wholeness. There's nothing else that's good enough,
Yeah.
ever.
Let's see. I'll take another track. Okay. Still got...
Okay, fine. I don't actually start at 2. Because people...
Yeah.
Especially in Amsterdam, funny enough. Come in late.
Yeah? I have a lot of people sitting in the sun.
And in Ireland too. If you go to Dublin, they're all tailboats.
Yeah?
Coming half an hour
Yeah?
after, or even
Say
an hour.
hello.
Amazing.
So you once called this the perfect lover.
Yeah, the perfect wholeness is the perfect lover because it never leaves you. Again, when liberation happens, people say to me, it's amazing because the thing I was looking for never left me. It was always here. It was always this, what is. And of course, it doesn't matter what anybody does. They can come to these meetings, or they can go watch football, or they can go and watch the pictures, or go for a walk. And what they long for never leaves them. It's constantly there, tapping them on the shoulder, saying, hello, I'm here already.
What's the thing between a man and a woman? Could we call that? Yeah, everything is love, but what's that?
I think for me the relationship, let's say between man and woman, although I think it's for anyone in any sort of relationship, we all have a male and female energy in us anyway. But male and female energy for me represents the apparent opposites that seem to appear out of nothing or oneness. Oneness appears two opposites, let's say male and female. The male energy is essentially more to do with detachment, and the female energy is more to do with devotion. It's more alive and emotional. And the two, I feel, are very, very attracted to each other and also repelled by each other, because there's something in each of them that frightens the other one. And for me, that's an absolute representation of what liberation is about. It's like the opposites are attracted to and repelled by each other. Many people are attracted to this message. When they come and hear it, they're repelled by it as well.
They run out of the room.
Oh yeah, they can do, or they don't like it because it's so confronting. This is a message that's deeply confronting. So the female and the male are attracted and repelled because somewhere they know, somewhere it's absolutely known, that if they really come together and melt into each other, they'll be lost. They'll lose their identity, which is what liberation is.
Yeah.
Liberation is just the loss of identity.
And what happens during sex, for instance?
Yeah, absolutely. I can do. It depends.
Yeah.
There could be 4 people in the room, or there could be no one in the room. You know what I mean? In that sense, there could be 2 bodies and 2 minds, or suddenly the whole thing will evaporate.
Yeah.
So, for me, the male and female energy are just representations of the opposites that appear out of oneness and seem to activate apart, and then finally they come together. And of course, they were never ever apart.
Yeah. We only thought they were.
Yeah.
Okay. So everything is a story?
Well, only for the individual. The individual, as far as I'm concerned, the separate identity is the story. There's no story outside the separate identity. Directly the dream of separation arises, the clock starts ticking, and the story of me begins. Apparently. It's only apparent.
Yeah.
It's an illusion, actually. But within that story arises, I must make my life work, or I must find enlightenment, or whatever. Liberation is simply the collapse of that whole story. The whole idea that there is such a thing as time, destiny, deity, and all those things simply collapse at the point of liberation. There's nothing left but beingness, which is indescribable.
But frightening for the individual.
Frightening prior to liberation. Of course, after liberation, there's no one to be frightened because there is no one.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's only beingness, there's only isness, there's only life.
Yeah.
Just life happening.
So nothing special, or everything.
Oh, it's not special, no. Well, it's totally ordinary. After liberation, everything goes on as it did before, but for no one. So, in a sense, it's completely ordinary, and in another sense, it's simply wondrous. It's really remembering and coming back to childlike wonder.
Yeah.
The childlike wonder of
Who looks around and
the wonder of
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
So thereafter, there's a living in wonder. It's not a great orgasmic thing. You don't go around having orgasms all over the place. But there is a gentle, gentle sweetness, a gentle wonder about everything, anything.
All the time.
People, carpet. Oh yeah, there's no one there anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen to a person. There is just wonder.
Yeah. So the person doesn't pop up once.
Oh no, there's no one.
You never
It
get
was
pissed off.
illusory. No,
When you get pissed off in
pissed off can happen, but there isn't anyone that
Not
gets
being
pissed
pissed
off.
off.
No, that whole idea of identity that owns something is not there anymore. Life, all there is free flow.
So all expressions of life, so irritation.
Oh yeah, joy, sadness,
sadness.
all
It's still,
absolutely,
yeah.
and even more so because prior to liberation, the individual is only half alive. After liberation, there is just life full on. There's
So
nothing,
you express it.
There's nothing else.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. So you don't hold back.
Well, it isn't that you don't hold back.
But prior, the
Oh,
person
prior.
holds back.
Yeah, the person
Well,
holds back, absolutely.
I can't sneeze.
But after that, there's nothing that they can't fart.
Yeah, yeah,
But after that, there's nothing that holds back. There's nothing to hold back.
yeah. But sometimes people call that, how's it called in Dutch, asocial. You know what I mean?
The mind would love to turn this into something nasty.
Yeah.
It's totally impersonal. This message is absolutely impersonal. It has got nothing else but impersonality in that sense. So a lot of people actually think that it is nihilistic or not very loving or not very compassionate.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, the only compassion there is the compassion which illuminates the illusion of imprisonment. The only compassion there is that which sets free this apparently imprisoned person. There's no other compassion. The idea that you should be sympathetic or nice to people or try to help them in their suffering, for me is just another deal going on between people.
Yeah.
This is about something that's totally radical and uncompromising. It's love. It's about unconditional love, which doesn't compromise, doesn't please people, doesn't try to help people feel better about themselves.
Yeah.
That's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But this message is pointing to something beyond that whole drama.
Has your way of responding to questions out of the audience, has it changed during time? Or are you still more to the point than 10 years ago? Or?
Page 4 of The Open Secret, paragraph 4, says everything, and that's 12 years ago, 1997. So the basic message hasn't changed, but the wording has. I find that I'm dropping words like nobody's business because there are certain words that are very confusing. So it's much more simple and direct than it was, but it's exactly the same message.
Yeah, but still you are patient in telling it over and
over.
No,
I'm not. No. There isn't anyone here being patient.
Okay, but
there's just a response. This thing here might get, somebody asking, why is there suffering in the world? 3,000 times maybe I would know, but it's always uniquely new.
Freshly.
Because everything is new.
Yeah, that's
so,
true.
there's not something here being terribly patient and saintly.
So only the person would go like,
oh yeah, no.
Here we go again.
No. Because we don't go anywhere again. It's always new.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah. It's still fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is newness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again and again and again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, let's